In this video, we're going to begin adding and subtracting fractions, and specifically rational expressions, which are the same things we've been looking at all along. So nothing different other than now we're going to add and subtract with them. So to add and subtract, we must have a common denominator. So this is true whether or not we're dealing with rational expressions or just rational numbers. So in order to do that, we first must change to an equivalent fraction so that all the fractions have the same denominator. Okay, that's what common denominator means. Do something to change it to make an equivalent fraction so that they're all the same. If possible, we use the lowest common denominator, and it should always be possible. And we're going to abbreviate that the LCD. And that's the simplest expression that all of the denominators can be. And that really just makes our question easier at the end. So what we're going to do then is we'll start with example 18 here, and we're not going to look at those steps because I'm going to do it a little differently for you. In this example, we're asked to find the lowest common denominator for these following fractions. Start by writing the denominators. So we have x plus 1, x squared minus 1, and x squared plus 2x plus 1. So to find the lowest common denominator, the first thing we have to do is factor all of them. And so this doesn't factor, so we're just going to leave it like it is. X squared minus 1 is x plus 1 and x minus 1. And you'll notice if there were any the same, I lined them up. And that'll be a key to our answer here. X squared plus 2x plus 1, well that's x plus 1 times x plus 1. Again, lining up pieces that are the same. And if we do this, we find that the lowest common denominator is each column. So x plus 1, x minus 1, and x plus 1. We don't need that second line. So that is the lowest common denominator of those three pieces. So what we do, we factor each piece, lining up pieces that are equal, and then we write each column to find our lowest common denominator. So this is the smallest that each of these things can be turned into by multiplying by the factors that are missing. So let's look at the next two examples for lowest common denominator. 4a squared b, well, we're going to do this the same way. 4a squared b, 6ab cubed, and 4ab squared. So we're just going to break this down as small as we can and line up pieces that are the same. So 4 is 2 times 2. A squared is a times b. So there's 4a squared b broken down into factors. 6 is 2 times 3, but we don't have a 3, so we have to put that at the end. A we have here, so we can put that one. B cubed, well we have 1. We need 2 more, so 1, 2. So there's 6ab cubed. 4 is 2 times 2a. B squared, so 1b here and 1b here. And now we find that the lowest common denominator then is 2 times 2 times a times b. Notice we're just taking whatever's in the column. Doesn't matter if there's 1, 2, or 3 items in the column, we just write whatever it is. And that's our lowest common denominator. So that's going to be 2 times 2 is 4 times 3 is 12. A times a is a squared. B is b cubed. So 12a squared b cubed is the smallest that each of the denominators can be turned into by multiplying. This even will show us what we need to multiply by to get that common denominator. So for example, if we wanted to see, okay, how do we make 6ab cubed into 12a squared b cubed? Well, we look at that particular denominator and we see we have a gap here and here, and everything else is full. And that tells us that we're missing this 2 and we're missing this a. So in order to convert this to that denominator, we have to multiply by the 2 and the a. And that would give us 10a over 12a squared b cubed. So we've changed our denominator to our lowest common denominator. So this is a great technique for doing that. So we'll do the last example then for the lowest common denominators, and then we'll look at some adding and subtracting in the next video. So we take each part, so x squared minus 2x plus 1. We factor that, and that's x minus 1 and x minus 1. X squared minus 1, well, that's x minus 1 and x plus 1. X squared minus x, well, that's x outside of, so we need an x outside of x minus 1. Lowest common denominator then, we take each of the columns. So x minus 1, x minus 1, x plus 1, and x. And that's going to be our lowest common denominator. So to convert each of these to that denominator, well, this one we need to multiply by, well, we're missing this part here and this part here. So we'd have to multiply by x times x plus 1 over x times x plus 1. X squared minus 1, well, here we're missing this piece and this piece. So we'd have to multiply this one by x minus 1 multiplied by x. And this one would be x minus 1 multiplied by x. And you see the idea, the last one we'd be missing this one and this one, so we'd have to multiply top and bottom by x minus 1 times x plus 1. That would make all of our denominators the same. This is a very important topic, again you see, coming from the factoring concept, so factoring is still important. But converting to what the common denominator is by filling in the gaps and finding the lowest common denominator is the first step to doing all the addition and subtraction. So make sure you have an idea of what just happened there. Maybe try some of the addition and subtraction. Try some with just numbers if you want. You can actually work the same idea with numbers, but make sure you do some practice of finding the common denominators anyway, and then come back in the next video where we'll work through some of the adding and subtraction of the rational fractions or rational expressions. So we'll see you in the next lesson.